Hello guys, I hope you're doing well. My name is Brian, and today I have the opportunity to explain to you some topics of grammar which are expressing purpose and qualifiers. So I hope you like it, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learned about what I will explain to you today. So let's start. First of all, we're going to talk about expressing purpose. And as we're talking about expressing purpose, we have to talk about the use. So we can use several structures to express the reason why we do something. So the first form to express purpose is the infinitive of purpose, and we can use it, or we can use infinitive on its own. The Stonewall Riots, also known as the Stonewall Rebellion, were a series of spontaneous violent demonstrations by members of the gay community, I mean the LGBT community, gay, lesbians, bisexuals, and transsexuals or transgenders, against a police raid. So the example that I have here says, the Stonewall Riots took place in the early morning hours of June 28th of the year 1969 at the Stonewall Inn, which was the place where everything happened in New York City, to promote gay liberation in society. So as you can notice, this is a purpose and we're using the infinitive, just the infinitive. Now we can use in order to or so as to plus the base form, which are more formal ways to express purpose. And something that we have to know is that in order to is more formal than so as to. Gay Americans in the 1950s and 1960s faced an anti-gay legal system. So early homophile groups in the US sought, in order to or so as to, prove that gay people could be assimilated into society, and they favored non-confrontational education for homosexuals and heterosexuals alike. So as you can notice, we have in order to or so as to, which are expressing purpose as well. But in order to is more formal, it's a more formal way. Okay? It is common to use in order not to or so as not to before a negative. I mean something like a negative statement or something like that. Very few establishments welcome openly gay people in the 1950s and 1960s. So homosexual people used to go to different establishments in order not to or so as not to seek fights, but rather to share with other homosexuals being themselves. So as you can notice, we have here in order not to or so as not to before something negative, that is seek fights. We know that seeking fight is not something positive. Okay? Now we have for plus the noun to express purpose as well. So those establishments that I mentioned before used to be bars. They were often bars, although bar owners and managers were rarely gay. So bar owners allowed homosexual people only for financial reasons. Okay, so we have for here and financial reasons, which is a noun. The reasons are noun, or this is a noun. Okay. Now we have avoid plus ing or avoid plus noun plus ing. Policy raids on gay bars were routine in the 1960s. So that's why we have, or I have my example here. Police officers used to make inroads in bars to avoid homosexuals getting away with it and feeling bad for being themselves. However, they lost control at the Stonewall Inn because they were not able to take over the place. So, well, as you can notice, we have here avoid, which is the verb that is here, homosexual, which is a noun, and getting, well, any verb with ing to express purpose. And now we have so that or in order that plus the clause. So that in order that are conjunctions and they are followed by clauses. So The Stonewall Inn was known to be popular among the poorest and most marginalized people in the gay community. So, drag queens, transgender people, effeminate young men, butch lesbians, male prostitutes, and homeless youth could find a perfect place for them so that, or in order that, they didn't feel marginalized anymore. So as you can notice, we have so that, or in order that, and they are expressing purpose. Something that you have to know is that so that is more common than in order that, especially in informal English, and we can omit that after so. If we had used just the so, well, if we had omitted that, we would have seen something like that. Drag queens, transgender people, effeminate young men, butch lesbians, male prostitutes, and homeless youth could find a perfect place for them so they didn't feel marginalized anymore. Did you see? So, well, basically that's the way of doing it. Well, now it's work time. Use the expressions to express purpose in order to complete the following sentences. So, well, you can come back, or I don't know what you can do, but I recommend you to pause the video in order to do the exercise. Okay? Now let's continue. Now we're going to talk about qualifiers. And as we are talking of qualifiers, we have to talk about the use. So qualifier is a word or phrase that intensifies or softens the meaning of the words that follow it. Now let's talk about the form. We have 4 qualifiers here: quite, really, pretty, and fairly. We use fairly to modify the meaning of adjective and adverbs. It means to a limited degree. So I have an example here. Homosexual people were not fairly certain of getting positive things to benefit their community. So as you can notice, fairly is here, and it is not as quite. Fairly is more limited. So, well, that's why we have the example here, because actually homosexual people in that time were not very sure that they were going to get something positive to benefit their community. They were just protesting, but they didn't know with certainty what was going to happen. Okay. Now, quite often suggests a higher degree than fairly, and it can also qualify nouns and verbs. So, gays and lesbians in New York City were quite sure about facing gender, race, class, and generational obstacles to becoming a cohesive community. So they were quite sure about that. And well, as you can notice, we have the qualifier here, quite. Really and pretty can only modify adjective and adverbs. They suggest a higher degree than fairly, and they can also suggest more than usual or expected. So the example that I have here is the fact of having created gay activist organizations was pretty or really amazing for the entire LGBT community. So we can use both, whatever you want, and both means basically the same. And it is modifying an adjective, which is amazing. Okay? Now we're going to talk about rather. Rather is an intensifier that can modify adjective, adverbs, nouns, or verbs, and it can express disappointment, criticism, or surprise. So the disturbances on the part of the homosexual community were rather a sample of the struggle for equality. And so, well, as you can see, it is modifying a noun, which is a sample of the struggle for equality. And that's kind of criticism, as you can notice. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about slightly, a little, and a bit. They soften the meaning of the words they are qualifying, and they can qualify adverbs, adjectives, and verbs. We often use these words to make criticism sounds less direct. So if we think better, the Stonewall riots were slightly or a little or a bit unnecessary, since both homosexuals and heterosexuals are people and will deserve the same respect. So as you can notice, they are soften the meaning of the words. So it's not about intensifying in like in a higher way, but in a softened way. They can be used before comparative adjective. I mean, slightly, a little, and a bit can be used before comparative adjective, whereas fairly, quite, and pretty cannot. Okay, that's something for you to know. And word time again. So use qualifiers to complete the sentences. So I again recommend you to pause the video in order to solve to complete the sentences. Well, that was everything for today. Thank you very much. You know, guys, I love you, and see you around. Many kisses. Bye.